What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Major League Pickleball. And we have some great guests today to talk about a new Major League Pickleball initiative. And this is where you get the inside scoop on the league, the drafts, the players, the teams, all of it. I am one of the hosts, Tyson Apostle. Some would say one of the godfathers of pickleball podcasting. And I am here with my other host, co-host. I'm a co-host too. I don't even know. Like, do I refer to myself as a co-host or do I refer to myself as a host?
I think either work. Well, you just say one of the hosts.
I'm
your co-host.
Here.
I'm your co-host, Tyson Apostle.
Is that?
I don't know. I'm one of your hosts. If I'm hosting a TV show, I am the host. But that's when I have analysts on the desk. So I think in podcast style, it's right to say either one.
I think, and first of all, Michelle McMahon, everybody, the most recognizable voice in the sport of pickleball. I think if you're referring to yourself, you're the host. And if you're referring to a partner host, they're a co-host.
I would say I'm one of your hosts.
Yes. But then you would say my co-host, Tyson Apostle. Mm-hmm. And same for me. So with that out of the way, that's very important for anybody in the future. If you are a co-host, you can call yourself a host, but introduce your co-host, and they do the same for you. Michelle.
Hi.
Busy week this week. We've got the 4th of July coming up. You have any exciting plans?
Happy birthday, America. I don't really. I've been traveling so much for pickleball, as you know, so I'm kind of taking it easy this week without much MLP or PPA going on.
Yeah.
Hopefully find my way on a boat somewhere, because that's usually the goal.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to say, like, you say this, but like every 4th of July on your social media, I see you like in a swimsuit on a boat or on the beach with your feet up and a drink, and you're like, I'm not doing anything. I have no plans. And I'm like, oh, no plans? You're just on a yacht?
I always find myself, last year I got invited at the 11th hour onto a yacht in Chicago, and I flew from Florida to Chicago, and I'm not that fancy, guys. It just happened. And I'm hoping that happens this year, but I haven't gotten the phone call yet, and it's July day before. So I don't think it's looking good for
Very
that.
Close.
But maybe I'll make a friend today, and they'll invite me on their boat. That's usually how my life works out. But right now it seems kind of lame. What about you?
Fingers crossed for you, Michelle.
Thank you.
I will be taking my family to the Major League baseball game.
Oh.
Yeah, I figured what's more like 4th of July than going to a baseball game, right?
Right?
The D-backs.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm already tasked with beating the Chase Field record of putting an Oreo on your forehead and getting it into your mouth. I broke the record. I was the one.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So last year I did it, and everybody's tried to work the Oreo down their cheek muscles and worm it into their mouth. And I flipped it from my forehead into my mouth, and the entire stadium went berserko.
Oh my gosh.
So the
What's
Diamondbacks,
lined up? Do we have anything lined up? Do they know you're coming?
They know I'm coming.
Okay, good.
And we're doing the Oreo flip challenge again.
Okay, it's happening.
So
sure.
So you have 30 seconds to worm this thing into your mouth. The previous record before last year was 24 seconds. I did like 3.5 seconds because I got it on my 3rd Oreo flip. So I have to get it within 2 Oreo flips to beat my own record.
That's like Olympic status.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see this, the footage. It made me crack up laughing last time I saw it. So stay tuned for that.
Oh,
Oreos
man, I'm excited.
and pickleball.
And people like the Diamondbacks keep asking me if I'm going to practice. And I'm like, no, because if I practice and I get it on my first flip, I'll have so much regret. It's like hitting a great shot in warm up. You know, you save those shots for a competition. So I'm like, I'm not going to risk practicing and doing it on my first try and being like, oh, that would have been amazing if that were the real thing. So no practice. I'm going in cold.
Okay.
And I've also like spent the week thinking about last week after we shut the podcast down, we talked about Travis Rettenmaier. And you were like, we should talk about Travis's almost a conundrum here, where he's owner of a team, but he's also a player in the draft. And now his team is not at the premier level where he will almost certainly be drafted in the premier level. So how does that work? And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's an interesting conundrum, and he talked about it on his podcast as well, as far as understanding the politics behind it. Obviously, there's, a bit of a conflict of interest there as well. But he has said to us openly that if he gets drafted to another team, he will 100% be committed to that team. So the question is, and what he acknowledged is some people have been saying, oh, he's not a premier level player and that he should be in the Challenger League no matter what. He says that's bogus. I'm a premier level player. So I think it'll be interesting to see whether the talent outweighs the, conflict of interest, political side of things. And especially when you have players like Pablo Tellez, Connor Garnett, Christian Alshon inching their way forward. You can even put Rob Nunnery in the mix there, of guys that are in the challenger level currently that are able to make their way up to premier level. So we'll see. I mean, I've heard different rumblings about various other guys that are dropping out of premier level, just not playing. Kyle Yates being one of those, and a couple of, maybe there's speculation on Lucy and Matt if they're playing next season. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But I think it's a very interesting conundrum, to say the least. And I don't know. That is one of the storylines that I'll be very interested to see how it shakes out come July 12th.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit after, at the end of the show. Mm-hmm. But first, let's get to our guests. And before that, Michelle, hit us with those sweet ad reads.
Yeah, thanks so much to our sponsors that keep us going here on the pod. Starting with Pro XR, Knock Around, the official sunglass partner of Major League Pickleball, Aura Organic, Toyota, OS First, Sunday Swagger. The list goes on and on. We appreciate you. We thank you. And we continue to have gratitude for their support. Without further ado, time now to welcome in our guests from Pickleball Cares, Geoff Nguyen and Virginia Keller. Geoff is a part owner of the Bay Area Breakers, the dominant team from the challenger level this pickleball season for Major League Pickleball. He has been obsessed with the sport we all know and love since 2019, and a pillar in the banking industry for the last 20 years. He also owns some courts in the Arcadia, California area where some of the MLP stars train. And for Virginia Keller, she is a nonprofit guru, has over a decade of experience working with several nonprofit organizations. She's worked in the past in partnerships with NFL, NCAA, and in her current role as the Director of Development for Coaches Against Cancer program at the American Cancer Society. She works very closely with ESPN, my former friends with the Big Ten Network, NCAA, and many others. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I know this is an important initiative for Steve Kuhn, who sits on the board with Pickleball Cares. So let's start with how you would explain, Geoff, what Pickleball Cares is and why this is a priority for Major League Pickleball fans.
Okay, well, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Tyson, for having us. So Pickleball Cares is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and basically it was born from the passion of pickleball. Everybody in pickleball is just so passionate and wanted to give back. So we decided to start a nonprofit organization for us to do this, and we did so in partnership, I should say, with Major League Pickleball, and they were essential to the formation of our nonprofit.
How did this partnership with Major League Pickleball come to be, Geoff? I know that you're have been involved in the sport for a handful of years now. Did you use those connections, and how did those conversations look?
Well, yeah. So Steve Kuhn, obviously, the visionary of Major League Pickleball. So Pickleball Cares is an idea that Steve had for quite a while, a couple years, I would say, but it just never came to fruition. So when I bought into the Bay Area Breakers last year, I think at the beginning of the year, around January, Richie Twazan, who was the current owner of the Breakers, formerly the Jackrabbits, had approached me about Pickleball Cares to see if it's something that I was interested in. And immediately, it was just something I felt like I had to do. So I took it, I ran with it, and we presented it to Steve and Ann, and that's basically how we started.
So we talked about Steve, Geoff, you're involved, Virginia, you're here. Who else is involved in the staff, and what is their role?
So Pickleball Cares, we're kind of running pretty, lean right now. There's myself, I'm the executive director for Pickleball Cares. Virginia is a friend of mine that I've known for actually a very long time. Would you say more than 20 years, Virginia?
Yeah. Geoff's also a very hard guy to say no to.
You got roped into this one.
Right. I reached out to her because of her background in nonprofits, which you talked a little bit about earlier, and asked her if this is something she would want to do with me. And we ran with it. So Virginia and I, put everything together. We filed for the nonprofit status. And then we brought on a couple of staff members. So we do have 4 people within the organization now. We have Zach Taylor, who is our lead instructor and program manager. And we do have somebody else that kind of just helps us run operations and partnerships with the different brands out there and companies that become our sponsors or donors. So we're running pretty lean, but a majority of what Pickleball Cares does relies a lot on the volunteers. And our volunteers are the reason why we exist.
So perfect segue there for you, Virginia. How would you explain the mission of Pickleball Cares, and you've obviously very well versed in the nonprofit space. What made this so intriguing to you in terms of the amount of impact it can have? So I guess double layered question, what's the mission and why
the mission
did that resonate with you?
It's pretty simple. It's to use pickleball to impact lives. And that goes from everyone that essentially enjoys the sport and the communities that they live in. What was really intriguing about this opportunity to me is the nature of the sport itself has a lot of accessibility to it. And I've always had, obviously, a sports background and passion in using sports to impact youth in particular. So when this opportunity came about and Geoff asked me, I really just couldn't pass it up.
Yeah, and when I'm looking even at this organization, you have Rachel Retger. Is she also part of the team over there? She's a professional pickleball player. You have Zach Taylor. He's very familiar. I've seen him around coaching. And then on the governing side, you have Steve Kuhn there as well. So I'm sure you're in close contact with him. What are they all doing to, further this mission?
They're truly lending their time and talent towards helping us achieve our mission. We have a few individuals that work for MLP on our board, also Sam Flaxman from PPA. And whatever it is that they do for the league, they're also essentially duplicating those talents and helping Pickleball Cares and advancing our mission.
What's the, starting point for, it's such a big project. How do you narrow down the focus on where to start and what the first initial push will be?
Oh my gosh, Michelle, that is a great question because we are figuring it out live. It really has been, we established it
right now here on the podcast.
I mean, it's happening right here. It seems like so long ago, but I think we actually got status in February, and it's just been baptism by fire since then. And I mean that in the best way possible because the popularity and demand and the passion behind those who are involved, I mean, it's really such a driving force behind just fast tracking everything that we're doing. But I guess the short answer to your question is where we're putting a lot of our efforts right now are our youth clinics. And we had several of those planned for the year. Those are provided with the professional pickleball players as instructors. to underserved communities and at no cost to the participants. A lot of great things about those clinics. Not only are they interacting with the professionals and really getting a good mentorship opportunity there, but one of the barriers to play equity in this country is how much equipment costs. And so every child that participates in one of our youth clinics does get to go home with a paddle. And those are being donated generously by Yola and ProXR at the moment. So they're good stuff too. They're cool. Walking away with something that is very meaningful.
That's awesome. What pros are involved? Are you going to have different pros at each event, or is there a staff of pros that you are going to keep going back to?
I'll let Geoff answer this one because they happen to also be his personal friends. A lot of them.
Yeah. I probably know them better. So, we do have, we are trying to stay kind of within the MLP pros, and then we're staying in the MLP footprint. So if we are hosting a clinic, let's say, for example, there's one coming up in New York, obviously we would reach out to, the hustlers or the aces first within the area, and we'll see if those pros are available to help us. So Zach and Rachel have put together a program already. So, what we do is we bring one of the instructors with us, Zach with us, and he'll kind of lead the instruction, and then the pros can kind of follow through his program. But for example, in New York, we have Rafa Hewitt joining us. We have Connor Garnett, Federico Statscrud. Who am I missing? Zach Taylor is going to be teaching that one, and Pablo Tellez is going to be instructing that one also.
Yeah, I also see Paris Todd's name. Is she going to be present there in New York?
So that is an announcement, right? So Paris Todd will be joining us in New York, and she is also going to be a part of the MLP draft.
Oh, it's going to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Tyson.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to Geoff about his friendship with the pros. So you own Piccadilly Courts in California, and
yes.
Literally, when I'm on social media, watching the pros train, seeing little videos, there's like two places that the pros are shooting their content. One is at Dreamland in Texas, where a lot of pros have started migrating to Austin, and the other is Piccadilly Courts.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How, are you, it's a private court. Are you making that available for pro? So if I eventually became pro, would I be welcomed at Piccadilly Courts with open arms and just be like, come on in? What is that? How did your connection with all these pros start?
So it started in 2019, right, during COVID. It was just a time in LA in which all of our courts were just closed. The fences were all locked up, and we did not have a place to play. So what I decided to do at that time was I rented this house out in Tarzana, California, and it had a tennis court. So, we taped up pickleball lines, we bought a temporary net, and my friend and I, Mark, decided we're just going to learn to play pickleball and see how good we can get. And I think at that time, Mark was taking lessons with Scott Crandall, the current Bay Area breaker coach.
Yeah.
And, Scott had asked us about it, and he was friends with Jesse Irvin, and they asked if they can also come and train at the courts. And that's kind of how we met. And every single weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, we, showed up at the courts, and, Jesse would invite some of her pro friends, and we just played pickleball for the next year there. And I just had so much fun doing that. I decided that I was going to build, some new courts out here in LA somewhere. And that's kind of where Piccadilly was born.
I got to ask about the pickleball side of things, because you're part owner of the Bay Area Breakers, who apparently crushed it in the challenger level draft, which was not an easy task. And I know we're kind of going rogue here, but as one of the owners of that team and now heading into the premier level, how were you guys so dialed in with the challenger level talent that really at the time, we didn't really have a ton of data on a lot of these players. Obviously, you had your known entities and then a lot of unknown entities, such as Rachel Summers.
Right.
I just am curious how you guys landed on such a good team.
So we kind of went into this knowing that it would be difficult because the talent was obviously unknown at the time. A lot of players were just sort of up and coming. So I actually spent, so I am the GM for the Bay Area Breakers too. So I spent a lot of the time in the previous 6 months leading up to it, traveling from tournament to tournament. I actually, for the first time, saw Eva Rezakowska out in Atlanta when she was playing in a tournament out there. And I just remember her playing, I think it was with Glauca at the time, and she had a backdraw match against Elise and Megan Dazan. And, they went up 10-1. They ultimately ended up losing that, but I just remember seeing...
From 10-1? Oh,
yeah, they went up 10-1. And we just, I walked away after that. I thought they were going to win that one easily, but I actually came back and they ended up losing that match. But I just remember seeing Eva at that time and remembering how much potential I saw in her. So that's kind of how we discovered Eva. And I just saw she was doing so well in singles. I remember her beating Mary Brasha in that tournament. So it was really just a lot of traveling, a lot of research, and watching these players play.
How does that segue now into premier level? Like, obviously, you know your pick selection, you know the talents a little bit more. Well, I guess you can't really give away too much information, but you can give us maybe something.
A little insight. A
little insight.
A little bit.
I don't even know this actually. So this.
Oh, here we go.
Right, so we have our consultants, right? Scott Crandall is going to be a very integral part to our draft selection. Richie is always there in the room with us. Mimi, one of our other owners, will be there also, and we'll talk about the players. But we have a draft strategy, and I think ultimately we have a profile that we want to kind of select based on. I won't exactly say what the profile is, but as long as the player kind of fits within that profile, that's kind of who we want on our team.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
So when it is interesting.
You don't fit the profile, Tyson. Don't even try.
I don't fit a lot no. Profiles.
I'm just kidding.
I was wondering how
I
you're
either perfectly fit a profile.
He's like, do I?
No, I was going to ask still about Challenger League draft last season. Do you know how many players you were looking at? About like how many had applied? Was there multiple hundreds?
There wasn't as many last season as there are this season, but I would say around that time in Challenger, we probably had a good 60 players in both genders after Premier was drafted.
Okay.
Wow.
So now we talked to Brooks last
600.
week. He said over 600 applicants, which means there's going to be well over 500 to choose from for the Challenger level. Do you have any advice for these teams that are like looking for at 550 players? How do you even find the player that you want?
It is going to be very difficult, but I think you would just have to kind of focus on looking at some of the PPA and APP events and just looking at results. And
Are you so happy you started in Challenger the first year? I don't know, because there's different challenges, right? Like you took it upon yourself to travel to all these places, right? Not everybody did that. I would imagine was just kind of based on who they know and who they didn't. Are you glad that you had it the way that you did, or would you prefer to have over 600 players to sort from? I don't know. I feel like there's challenges both ways.
I mean, I'm glad I did it the way that I did. Obviously, it worked out well.
I would say so. You did a good job doing that.
Like you would rather start in Challenger when you did versus being Challenger this time around, right?
Yeah, I do feel like starting in Challenger, I had that advantage because I did.
Like the teams that started in Challenger is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I don't know. I'm curious, like ownership perspective of that. Is it easier starting in Challenger or? I
heard it both ways. I think, a lot of owners, I think, would have preferred to start in Premier because they knew the players. And then it would give them time to learn more about the players that they didn't know because they would be playing in Challenger in the first season. So I think most owners probably would have preferred starting in Premier.
Okay.
Yeah, that
and
makes
sense. Said, no problem. I'll one up everybody and draft the best team. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal when you do your research. Virginia, we have the Major League Pickleball draft coming up in New York.
We do.
And in conjunction with that, we have the first Pickleball Cares clinic. Can you tell us, like, what's it going to look like? Where's it at? How many people are going to be there? All of it.
It is actually not our first, but it is certainly our biggest.
It's not your first?
We did a couple soft runs just to make sure we had this one dialed.
Okay.
But they were much smaller. I mean, we were doing clinics of 24 kids, and we have 75 kids coming out for this New York clinic.
Awesome.
It is also the first time we're working with a partner. We're working with City Pickle, who runs the courts at Woolman Rink. It is the Woolman Rink that you're thinking. That is typically an ice skating rink. During the summer, they're converting it to pickleball courts. And I am not doing it justice by describing it right now. I suggest...
Wow. Oh, we've all seen it online.
Oh my gosh.
We've seen it. It's everywhere.
It's beautiful. And what a fantastic backdrop. And the most important thing about those courts is that they are public. That's very important to us, that is a community resource that anybody can come play, including the kids that are participating in our clinics who are going to ultimately love pickleball after they're done.
Mm-hmm. Aw, that's so cool.
Was there any challenges in, you're starting out, you have this initiative, but where is the audience as far as like these 75 participants? Like, where did they come from? How did you invite those kids there?
City Pickle was actually very instrumental in helping us with the outreach. We wanted to work with local organizations, and they are already working with local organizations. Even though we're partnering with them on this particular clinic, they run programs year round. So it's students that they're already working with from Boys Club of Long Island, the YMCA youth program, local nonprofit organizations like that.
Okay. And what will the clinic look like? Like, is it a full day? Is it a half day? Is it multiple days?
We are doing 3 back-to-back 1-hour clinics. And we're doing that by design so that we can maximize the time of our pros, the pros that Geoff listed before. Yep. Every student that participates gets some kind of interaction and some time with each of the professionals. But it's going to be a fun day.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Amazing. I wish I could be there. Geoff, just kind of in closing, I know with Steve Kuhn involved in Pickleball Cares, there's a lot of goals on the table. So what other broad goals do you have for Pickleball Cares, and what else can we expect or look out for in the future?
Actually, let me bring this one back to Virginia, because there's a couple of programs in which Pickleball Cares will be offering that she can go over. Do you want to talk about the grants and the scholarships and such?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We do want to keep impacting the youth that participate in our programs, even after the clinics and beyond the court. And so all the youth that participate will have the opportunity to apply for equipment grants and seed money to start their own programs, whether it be in their PE programs at school or community leagues of their own. We also are going to offer in the future college scholarships. And we're doing that so that a student that is considering, continuing a sport into post-secondary education won't choose another sport in favor because there's not scholarship opportunities. So we really wanted to fill that gap. And another thing that we wanted to do is break down the barrier of entry to play equity in the infrastructure part. So we want to do court revitalization and court constructions in the communities that need it the most.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
How will you find those communities?
I think we're going to do the same thing similar to what we're doing with City Pickle, really work with local partners. I don't want to give away too much, but there's a few that we're already talking to, and we've identified places that communities are really welcoming it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm a kid. I'm in New York. I'm at my first pickleball clinic. I get the game introduced to me by some of the top pros in the game. I fall in love with the sport. I decide I want to continue learning about pickleball. Pickleball Cares is going to help me with equipment. They're going to help me with events. They're going to help me as much as they can when I need that help, all the way up through to the point where I'm deciding, oh, should I pursue professional? Should I go to college? At college, I need help. And this is like the evolution of the sport, where now you're getting these true athletes that want to pursue pickleball as their first sport.
Yep.
Have the option and opportunity to do it.
Yep, you got it. We want to impact kids at all stages of their lives, and really build that pipeline for future pickleball players. In fact, Geoff and I envision future MLP and PPA players coming through Pickleball Cares. And so we're hoping to see that 10 years from now.
Yeah, that's long term. That's got to be part of the draw of doing this, right? Is like seeing someone's life actually change and all of it come full circle. And then they're the pro at the event helping other kids, right?
Yep, you're absolutely right.
That's the vision.
Okay. How can people get involved? Like, is there a way for, our listeners is there information somewhere, a way to donate, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, www.pickleballcares.org. You can donate there. There's also a link that's get involved. There's different ways to get involved via volunteering, donating, sponsorships, and then, if you have an organization that would like to partner with us, you can also contact us through the website.
Okay. Beautiful. I love it. I really commend you guys. I know that like pickleball is new and there's a buzz about it, but like sometimes it's hard to, see a pathway for these kids to get to where they want to go, especially because it is new and there's not always opportunity. So before we close, anything else from Geoff or Virginia? Geoff.
Yeah. So Tyson has actually played at my house once, and I've seen him play. So
Who, me?
looking forward to you entering the draft.
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Soon.
601 draft entries. It is Tyson Apostle rounding out the group. Ferris Todd and Tyson Apostle, the newest ads.
Geoff, you know how old I am, though. I'm 44. I can't. You think that because I saw a headline the other day that like there's lots of pickleball injuries. I don't want to be one of those numbers. So, and if you put me in a competitive situation, I'm going to push hard.
We'll start him in the ownership group.
Everyone's in the same age group. I think you can do this.
Okay, listen, here's what I'll do. I'll go to the clinic in New York, and then I'll eventually get a scholarship from Pickleball Cares
to
play
finish your
pickleball
degree.
and finish a degree. And then I'll be the guy in 10 years to come in and be like,
You're going to be our
Pickleball
At
Cares.
age 54.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to get all the way through. That's I think honestly, Geoff, if we're being real, I have a better chance at doing that than getting selected in a draft anytime soon. So
Just start with volunteering.
audience with the GM of the Bay Area Breakers right now, though.
I know I
That's
do.
right.
Oh, you're right. Well, I'm a good hype man, and I also always give it my all. Sometimes it's not enough, but I try. And
Isn't that life?
yeah. So did I do enough? I don't think I did, especially for
Let's see, right?
for premier level. Geoff and Virginia, thank you so much for your time and for your efforts and energies in the sport. Without you guys, the sport wouldn't be where it is. So thank you so much, and enjoy the holiday week.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Thanks,
Take care.
guys.
All right, Michelle, I loved having the guys from Pickleball Cares on, and it's amazing what they're doing. Are you going to be at the draft?
No, I don't think so. I wish. I'm going to be on my way to Denver, PPA Denver, for the next PPA event.
Right.
And then Seattle to follow that one for pickleball. So sadly, I will not be there.
Okay.
But I wish I was.
Yeah, and
And
it
if I
sounds
was, I would be at the clinic.
It sounds like the clinics are going to be in conjunction with a lot of Major League Pickleball events.
Yes.
So
which is
hopefully
so cool.
in the future, is so awesome.
And that's like a Steve Kuhn, like totally. I feel like his mission behind just the sport in general has been how do I say that word?
Philanthropic.
Philanthropic. I don't know.
Philanthropic.
I really dug myself into a hole there that I can't get out of.
And we're not going to edit that. So
keep it in. I speak for a living, and I'm not going to do that to myself again.
We'll practice that word.
Intended with his vision.
Yes. Well, so
Period.
like, can you imagine being like a kid and Major League Pickleball comes through your town? You get to go to this clinic with some of the pros, and then you also probably get to go watch the pros play at the event. It's so awesome.
So cool. I love it. And it's such an important arm to have for like I said, it's just on brand with the sport itself, and then to make it accessible to all, because it's a relatively inexpensive sport to pick up and play with the public parks. You can show up and play.
Yeah.
The fact that they're teaching kids at such a young age. Not that MLP is involved with this, but you can see it implemented in prisons. Like, it's just the sport is doing so many good things, but then for MLP to have its own fingerprint on the community in that way, especially with youth and the kids, I think it's such an amazing initiative, and so important to get a paddle in these young kids' hands to keep them focused on something other than sometimes life at home isn't easy. So I think it's a perfect outlet for kids that don't have a solid situation going on, and I think it's awesome.
It's a perfect outlet for me too.
Yeah.
I know
and
if
I
I
want to
hit
volunteer.
the courts.
Like, I think that's all, like at these events where MLP, if it does, which we both assume will be happening at the future events, I think it's really cool to have a way to give back for all of us that are involved with. Sorry, I'm just full of. Don't edit that either. Just keep it.
Okay, we will.
Full of the MLP family. I don't know what's going on over here.
Let's get into this Travis Rettenmaier thing a little bit more. So for those that maybe haven't been following Major League Pickleball from the get-go, Travis Rettenmaier, early on, right when Major League Pickleball was founded, got a team because he wanted to play, which, I admire that drive and determination to be a part of this. And Travis was like, the only way I'm going to play initially is if I have some ownership in a team. And so he got some ownership, and he played in the first ever event, and he surprised a lot of people. Like, some people had their doubts, and he was relatively new to the sport, but he did great. He held his own. He made the finals, I believe, with Florida Smash. And
yeah, he's got a good track record. Like, the people that want to hate on him, granted, I think he had J.W. Johnson that year that they made it to the finals, but still, I think he has a decent track record. Like, the Florida Smash have made it pretty far in knockout rounds consistently, with the exception of, I think it was Daytona. But yeah, it's an interesting situation.
So he owns this team, and this season now, because they have Premier and Challenger, it's a little bit interesting because Major League Pickleball didn't foresee this either, is that he now is going to be a part of the ownership of the Challenger level team. And so historically what he's done is draft himself a little early to make sure that he gets himself drafted. And now he's a premier level player. I believe that Travis Rettenmaier is a premier level player. And if you look at the standings from the PPA and stuff, he's top 20 in both men's and mixed doubles.
Yeah.
So where does he go? So he's going to get drafted by a team. And he was on this podcast saying that he had to put in writing he would compete for any team, because even him getting traded or dropped or something from his own team could be a possibility.
So I would be curious to see, we haven't received the full list of who is playing in season 2, because I would love to see the current
I believe
Premier.
it's out now.
Okay.
So
I want to see that full list of the guys that were in premier level that aren't in premier level this or aren't available. And I don't know. I'd like to think if there's still, I think he'd be a 4th round pick in the premier level. But I don't know if you're an ownership group. I mean, you also have to think fit partner wise, right? So it all really just depends on who you have and who you need to compliment. I heard on his podcast him saying he wants to play more on the right side, which is surprising to me, but makes sense, I guess, because he's he's speculating on a partnership with Matt Wright being available. Just who knows if that's even happening. But that was just a conversation that him and Graham were having. So I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. I feel like he might drop down to challenger just by nature of the situation at hand. But
no, I don't think so.
You don't
I don't
think
there's
so?
any way. So if
you don't
I'm
think
looking,
politics will get in the way?
I think he's too good. You have you look here down the list of men's rankings, and they have announced the full draft list today. So Major League Pickleball
No wonder.
.net, go to news and click on the first article. It tells you everyone who's in the draft. And they have Travis Rettenmeier at number 9, ranked number 9 in men's. So out of all the men, he's ranked 9th in all
Based
of
on
his
his
ratings. Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
And then they also give you some performance numbers there. So
I see it now.
So, I mean, top 10, there's 12 teams in Premier level. So 24 men are going to get drafted in Premier. He's well above that 24th spot.
Yeah, that's a good point by you.
Well above it.
But I just think, I don't know. Well, because he's a competitor, right? Like, it's not like he's going to mail it in.
No,
and
he's
they're
playing.
separate.
He's going to play hard. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
The only question is like, overall, it will have some effect on promotion and relegation for 2024.
Right.
But I believe when Travis says he's going to want to win, he's going to want to play and I think he's anxious to play in the Premier level, and I think he deserves to play in the Premier level based on his talents. So it's just interesting. I just think it's a little bit interesting. He's a very unique case here, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm conflicted as an ownership group. I mean, I guess this year it doesn't really conflict as much unless it's, say, a team that you're directly competing with, like in the standings type of situation.
Yeah, like on a close level or something.
Which case I would like to think he would still be competitive no matter what. But then it becomes more of a sticky situation next season when everything's set, right? Come 2024, then what happens? So what do you think happens once the dust settles there?
I think it's going to be fine. I think there's a very few instances where that where that's going to come into play. So I think he's going to play Premier, and I think that's going to be great. And I don't foresee any issue. But let's go down some of these standings, at least the top 24, because these are most likely. Let's go to the women first. Most likely the women that will be drafted in Premier level, and we see Paris Todd there coming in ranked 6th. She wasn't around last season. Who else are we seeing here?
That's big news, in my opinion. Yes. I'm high on Paris Todd. I think she's one of the strongest women's women available, and I think she, in my opinion, could go first round for sure on the women's side and leapfrog some of the ladies in front of her that I see on this list right here, because like I said, it's like partnerships, chemistry. Like they might be, 8 on this list, and then it's like, okay, but how do they fit with whoever we draft and who's available? And so it's just really interesting. I thought it was an interesting insight that Geoff gave us of like he has a prototype now, because when we talked to Richie earlier in the season, he just went straight off duper.
Yeah.
Remember? He was like, if you have the highest duper, that's what we're going on. And then BOQK didn't have the best outing this last one, so I'll be curious if he's tweaked that at all, or if he's just going still by strongest player available according to duper. You're going for that. So
and I'm gonna talk to Geoff after the draft and see if he'll give us the profile that they're looking for their team.
That'd be interesting.
Other notables, Susanna Barr jumps up to 16. She was in challenger level last season. So she's ranked 16th there for the women. And then we also have, Megan Fudge has jumped up in there. So there are a few that
I just don't feel like this is 100% where I would put like Megan Dazon's a little far down for me. I would move her, I mean, I think it's a good reference point, but I feel like.
Well, and you're looking at decimal points.
Right.
It's like 5.738 rating versus a 5.737 rating. Like that's like it's decimal points, and that's where knowing the players is going to be key.
Right.
So let's look at the men then. I mean, here we've also talked about Jill Braverman upsetting the draft a little bit this year too with the Premier. She's slated at 31st.
Right. And something she's acknowledged is like this competition, this style, this format caters to certain personalities as well. And the players that can rise up to the occasion in the 18 to 21 point zone and rise to the occasion, especially with all the pressure on it. I feel like that's where the eye test comes into play, where it's like you can't measure everything with numbers. While it's certainly an amazing frame of reference, and I definitely believe in duper and everything that it offers to the sport, like there's an eye test as well, and the off the court stuff, which I think plays into a huge part of partnerships and who does what, who plays well with that. And right below Jill, Tyra Black, Hurricane Tyra Black, who's a name that has been getting some mentions as well for premier level looks. Yep. So, but then it's like, who would you pair Hurricane Tyra Black? She's a newer player. She's very powerful. You put her on the left. Who you partnering with her? And then who does that balance with mixed? I just think it's a very interesting.
All of it comes into play for sure.
And you can have a really good, like the Hard Eights, that Adam Stone's GM of that team. You have Riley Newman and Lindsay Newman, and you still don't make knockout rounds like that. And you have a good, solid team like that's. So you can feel good about the talent, but again, then that's where the eye test and the like intangibles, in my opinion, come into play. Of like the Jill Bravermans thrive in that kind of pressure-filled moment, and that the energy and all that stuff. So
right. So let's get to the men here.
Okay.
So we don't have any real shakeups until number 17, Christian Alshon, has jumped up. So he's now in
By how many decimal points?
By how many decimal points? It's by about 0.06-ish. So it's not a lot, but he is slated there at 17. We have Jordan Kinney in there, Pablo Tellez. So those guys are all slated there, and they're slated above Jay DeVilliers and AJ Kohlers. Rob Nunnery sneaking in at 23rd. Connor Garnett's there at 24. And then
Connor Garnett to me is in. I think he should be. And Pablo. Those two for me are a lock from Challenger up to Premier.
But then you look down the list a little bit. You got Tyler Leung at 29. He just barely won. Like, so who, so very, very competitive. And I think that
it's going to be so interesting.
This fourth round is going to make or break teams.
I think you're right.
The first round, the second round, pretty straightforward. You have to decide, am I going to go with a guy? Am I going to go with a girl? And have a strategy there. But the fourth round, where all these players are so close, I believe that is where your team is going to be made or destroyed.
So Kyle Yates is still listed in here as well. So I heard rumblings that he was maybe not participating, but a player like him, do you go experience or do you go with an up and coming Connor Garnett? Or
that's the thing.
Even Hunter Johnson. I think Hunter made a splash with the LA Mad Drop, stepping in for Thomas Wilson in that situation in Daytona. I think he could get some looks. I don't know. I do not envy the role of GM. I think you have to be so plugged in, not only with the eye test, like the talent, obviously. You have the numbers, right? Like, but is it really that big of a difference if you have somebody that's like 0.002 higher?
No.
Like, no. That's
then you
not
have to
gonna...
look at left or right side,
So
left or
even...
right-handed. And I think you also look at recency. Like, are they... is their game improving? Are they stagnant? Are they because a lot of these players have improved so much from January to now. And so like those players that are on that trajectory probably have more value as well. The guys, go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say one player that's jumping out to me in the top 5 that I think will, I had a list of players that will make the biggest jump in my opinion. And Andre Dascu is one of them. I think he should be a first rounder guy because he's playing that well. And he was a 3rd round pick last draft taken at 35. There's a couple of 3rd rounders that I think could either jump to the 1st or 2nd. Leah Jansen being one, Julian Arnold, I think because of everything that they did with the Mad Drops, a little bit streaky there, but the new partnership forming between he and Riley, that'd be cool if there's no way they're going on the same team, I don't think, in MLP. But those are just a couple of names that I'm impressed by Dascu's recent jump, and he is currently 0.04
What's so minuscule
marks
so
above. I don't even know how to verbalize that. I'm on a roll today, so just whatever. Above James Ignatowicz. So I think he's a first rounder. But to your point, Travis Rettenmeyer, top 10. Zane Navratil, top 10, but the Pandas struggled. I love that, the name, the Frisco Pandas. You
said Riley and Julian Arnold probably not on the same team, but Riley also named another partner, AJ Kohler.
Yeah, they could be.
They could be on the same team. So there's so much that goes into these drafts, like all the decisions, all the variables, and it could play out anyway. But I'm excited to see these new players and see what these ones stepping into Premier for the first time will do. We have almost 200 women that applied.
So cool.
And over 400 men.
Wow.
Yeah.
401 with you.
400. Well, there's over 400 already. Let me give you the exact number. I think there's 411. Let me see. Yeah, 411. So I will be slated in at 412, which chances aren't great.
Maybe we could get on the same team.
Yeah.
In Challenger.
We can. In Challenger? Maybe minor league pickleball is more my speed.
That's a good point. We could
do that.
Make some waves in minor league pickleball.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm here for it.
So, okay, Michelle, I will get you to your boat hunting for the 4th of July. Thank you so much for, helping run this thing with me. And thank you, pickleball people. Until next week, Michelle, paddle taps.
Boat. Hit me up. Paddle taps. Bye.